Okay, working to begin pulling the engine. So just kind of get a record here of how everything was connected or not connected. I will mark and label everything that I can as I go, but sometimes it helps to have a record of what it is that you're doing. So we'll kind of get a look here at all the different connections. That one goes to the mass airflow sensor that in the air cleaner. The manual says to remove the distributor cap and wires, which we'll do. Quite a bit of plumbing in here that needs to be removed. So just kind of try to keep track of how everything was routed. Shouldn't be that hard, but with all the air pump plumbing, air conditioning, the whole 9 yards, it's going to be a little more challenging than average. The first order of business is to get the radiator drained. I've already got the drain plug pulled and it's been collecting in a pan. Now I need to start disconnecting hoses. I'll have to pull the fan off. I can't quite reach the lower radiator hose at the moment. There's too much in the way. But I need to get the upper hose, lower hose, and trans cooler lines out of the way. And see where we can go from there. Now the coolant's drained, got the radiator out, the fan is removed and tucked away. There's a 2-pin connector off to the side that came from the fan that was electric. This is an electric fan driven. Next task is going to be pull off the air conditioning compressor and set it aside, and according to the instructions, the power steering pump as well should be disconnected and set aside. So I need to find a place to perch them safely, and once that's done, then I probably need to start disconnecting harnesses and throttle, cruise cables and so forth. There's still a couple of heater hoses on the other side too. Making progress on continuing the tear down of the engine. At this stage, the power steering pump is loose and ready to come out. I've got all the fasteners out. We'll just take a quick look in here. You can see the power steering pump. Again, all the fasteners are from the water pump and the block are loosened, and had to crawl underneath to get one of them. The fuel lines are tucked back out of the way here now. I did have to get the water pump pulley off to get the fuel lines off. It was obstructing the wrench. Got the distributor cap off. Coming up soon here will be the vacuum line for the brake booster, which connects in the back. all the throttle cables and cruise cables. Let me get a better look at those for how those came together, and I'll need to disconnect them and perhaps their bracket. There's a kickdown cable, a cruise control cable, and a throttle cable. If I go around to the other side, just recognize that down underneath here I have a lot of wiring harnesses. So you've got some hoses, but that wiring harness down underneath picks up to a number of different sensors, and there's another major wiring harness in the back that feeds all the injectors from down behind, and those are the injector cables there. I did pull off the PCV hose so I could get one of the heater hoses off of the intake. So next step will just be to start working through and pulling back all the wiring harnesses and so forth, and hoses, and trying to see what else I can get out of the way. Transmission kickdown cable, and flip this little guy off of here. That's the cruise control cable. There's one more in the back. Throttle cable, so this one down. These cables just have legs on them that stick out, so you can compress the legs. That spot here. Then the cable just pops back. At this stage, that may be the easiest way to handle. Cruise control on this side. Throttle this side. Here I have two evaporative emissions hoses. There. So that one came apart. Pull and twist. There we go. This one goes under the gas line. That is the brake vacuum booster hose. It does not have a clamp on it. It's flexible and in nice shape. One point of note was that this car had been sitting since 1993 or so. And the first time I touched the brake pedal, I was a little cautious because I was worried about the brakes locking up, or would they work. The first time I touched the pedal, I was vacuum still in the booster. It's been sitting there for 25 years and hadn't leaked down, which was kind of an interesting thing. This looks like one of the good old school Delco alternators from before they went to the tiny ones. Everything in the auto industry improves and gets smaller and leaner and more efficient, but sometimes it's nice to work on the old parts because they were meant to be more serviceable. This alternator, it's as it appears, being an original Delco, as opposed to one of the small ones, is more easily serviceable. It comes apart, it has an integral regulator, it has a set of screws here around the perimeter that you can take this one apart and change rectifier, bridge, just about anything that you would like inside that is easily changeable. The newer ones, it wasn't so simple. And I guess the second thing would be that these old alternators are pretty doggone rugged. You could take them apart in your garage in about a half an hour, which after the engine's out is probably what I'm going to end up doing. We'll leave the alternator on the engine while we pull it out. I don't think it has to come off. But the wiring harnesses need to be disconnected from everything because there does not appear to be any connector at the back of the car. The connectors, the wiring harnesses are continuous. Inside, the big harnesses run through here and go to the engine controller, the ECM. And so far I haven't found an intermediate connector, and I haven't seen one in the shop manual. This must have been a lot of fun for the assembly plant to dress and install in the car, because they would have had to make all these connections as you go. Okay, so that's alternator. This one, pop loose. This one is air pump. And here's another one for the air pump. Now, one's black and one's gray, so they look like they make sense. I've already pulled the mass airflow sensor because it went to the air cleaner. It's installed in the air intake. And I got two more here. This one looks like throttle position sensor. Right there. And then there's one down below here. Wow, am I going to be able to get that off? Yeah, I know. Just move the alternator. I had the alternator sucked in all the way. And this one is the idle air control IAC valve that sets your idle speed. And there are a couple more down here. A couple of sensors on the front of the intake manifold. It's getting closer here. And try to get a better look at what we got. There are my wires that are hanging. Those are from the idle air control and the throttle sensor. But down inside, underneath there, down right there underneath the alternator, there are two sensors. Well, I must say that connector on the one switch is still giving me a great deal of trouble. So I think at this point I'm going to take the alternator off, get it out of my way so I have a bit more room to work. So there's the alternator. Good old-fashioned Delco Remy. Good kind. Little culprit that I'm working on over here is this guy. Sorry, get a bead on it here. This guy right here. This is what's known as it's a thermal switch, a thermal time switch for this cold start injection system. This engine has 8 injectors, one for each cylinder, and then there's a 9th injector which is used just for cold start to help make the system a little bit more rich. This is one of 2 switches on the front of the manifold. One is regular coolant temperature, and I already got that one out, or the connector off. That one's easy. But this one is kind of a little bit unique, and so by getting the alternator out of the way, I've had these before. I've had one of these switches, and it seems like it was incredibly easy once I found the combination, but it's a little bit of a jigsaw puzzle. In the meantime, let's see, just recording here. There's my wiring harnesses. Comes out underneath, through the middle, over the top of the air pump and out to the side. So once I get that one done, this front harness is finished. And then I can move back to getting the injectors. And I did check the injectors, the wiring, and basically there are 2 drivers. One driver drives each bank, each 4 cylinders on each bank. So one does the odds and one does the evens, but it's a batch style injection. So let me fuss with this a little bit more. Alright, trying to get this off, but it looks to me right now like this little metal strip, and it goes around both sides, that is the key to unlocking things. So let's see if I can get that lifted out of there. Gently, like that. There it goes. So that was the answer. Here's a little wire clip, and perhaps I could have gotten under here and lifted it that way, but I was able to get underneath here and lift it that way. So now that one's done and off. And that will free up this entire wire harness, which now, as I said, goes over the top of the air pump. And then I can fold that back. Oh, with one exception. We still have a wire going down under the block that I need to crawl underneath and disconnect. Then that one will be clear. Otherwise, see, there's the codes on the cylinder head. Chevrolet always used to put cast into their heads this pattern. Let's see if I can get a better shot at it here. That one right there. So if I go look that up, that casting code will identify the cylinder heads, where if you pull the valve cover you can find the casting number and go backwards, but you got to pull the valve cover. So this lets you pick up, look at the front of an engine and determine what kind of a head is on it. Alright, otherwise, next thing is to probably start pulling injector wires that is, and start clicking down through that.